Hey guys, today I'm going to be sharing with you a new build I've been working on for the past 2 weeks. I call it the 12-volt Zane build, although I have been pondering on calling it the Lightning McZane. Before we get started, I got a lot of inspiration from the Chain Zane video by Moxie. I recommend going to look at that video. It explains how this build works in a lot more detail, and they both work about the same, but I don't believe his had enough bossing capabilities and whatnot, so I just changed up the way it plays, and I think it's better in the long. Anyways, I think we'll start with the gear, then we'll move to the skill tree, and lastly we'll see how it goes in battle. So I'll be going to Athenas and testing out. Alright, let's do this. Starting with gear. Your main mobbing weapon, and debatably the most useful weapon in your kit, will be the redistributor. Of course, having it radiation with the Sentinel anointment is going to be good for general mobbing, but you should change it for certain enemies. I have it in every single element, so I change it out whenever I'm going against certain enemies. Then the Brainstormer. This will be used for recharging your barrier and your Sentinel. If you shoot into a good group of enemies, it will easily recharge your action skill cooldown duration all the way to full. And then of course your bossing weapons. These will mainly be your Cutsmen. Of course, again, change them out depending on what you're fighting. Today we'll be fighting Trond after all this, so I use Shock and Fire. And yeah, it's really good for bossing. And I have a few other weapons in here that I just enjoy playing with, but the main part of the build revolves around the guns that I just showcased. But yeah, so now onto the shield. I use the one-shot shield. You can use just about any shield, it doesn't really matter, but I use this just because that extra damage is so helpful when fighting bosses or even just mobbing. Of course, I prefer the anointment doesn't matter either. I use the Sentinel because the faster you go in this build, the more damage you're going to do. So I use the Sentinel's active movement speed increased by 15%, and that just buffs up your damage that much more. Next is the grenade. I'm using the Stormfront, but it really doesn't matter which grenade you use. I would recommend anything that can MRV or home onto your enemies. I'm using the Stormfront for the sake of the theme of the video. The only thing that matters about the grenade, though, is that you have that on 25% grenade or weapon damage on grenade thrown. Next is the class mod, the Sing Dead. Any good Zane build has Sing Dead nowadays. What this does is that instead of every time you kill an enemy, it procs your kill skills, it makes it to any time you damage an enemy, it will proc your kill skills. It also gives you that 25% bonus, which is really good. It came out with the Moxie DLC, so if you don't have the DLC, your build won't be as good, but you can probably find a substitute. The only thing about the class mod is that you're going to want to have the +2 on Seeing Dirty. In case you don't know what that is, that's the first blue one with the 2 bullets in the emblem. Lastly, for gear is the electric banjo. This is a must for the build. It pulls everything together. This can be dropped by the Billies on Eden 6. This artifact is a great match with the redistributor. With this build, the redistributor always shoots an amped shot that will ricochet to other enemies that have a chance to proc the electric banjo. The damage is based on the damage that you output, but I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's 25% of the damage you're dealing. Anyways, now that we're done with gear, we're going to the skill tree. We're going to start with the Sentinel. The combo between violent speed and violent momentum is a must. I'd say put 5 in each. What violent speed does is the faster, every time you kill an enemy, you get faster. You can stack twice, so you can go up to 60% movement speed for 15 seconds. And every time you kill an enemy, that duration resets itself. And violent momentum is the faster you're moving, the more damage you're going to be doing. And that is almost the whole point of the build, is you're going to want to move as fast as possible, running around, sliding around, killing enemies. Now, as for Salvation and Cool Hand, those are interchangeable. I use them just to move up the skill tree, but what you want to have is drone delivery, and what that does is it drops a grenade every 15 seconds. So that means every 15 seconds you're going to have 20 or 25% weapon damage for 6 seconds. So about half the time you're in battle, you're going to have 25% extra damage. Next, what you're going to want to have is Death Falls Close. This is basically going to make your skill or kill skills much better and much longer. It's a must for the build. Violet Violence, I have that because I have it on my class mod, but it's good to have just one or so on it because with this it has an extra 25%, so instead of 5 fire rate, it gives you 30% fire rate. Next, what you're going to want to have is Playing Dirty, and this is why you wanted the extra 2 on your class mod, because with that extra 2, you'll have 7 out of 5, and that gives you 100% chance to get an extra shot every time you hurt an enemy or kill him. And that basically doubles any damage you have with the SMGs, the Cutsmen, the Redistributor. It's not that great for the Brainstormer, but it's still going to do that a little bit more damage. But it's a must for the build. That's what's going to be doing a lot of damage. Then Good Misfortune, of course. Then you're going to want to do Bad DOS, and that's just going to debuff enemies and buff you. And Static Field, what that's going to do is it's going to shock enemies around you and give you, so it's going to take enemy shield and give you more shield, which is a big part of this build, and I'll show you why in a second. Next is the barrier. I'd say the only thing that you actually need in the first 2 rows is Hardy Stalk and Ready for Action. These buff your shield, so you have max shield, and you get your shields back faster. This is big for going with Confident Competence, but I'll get to that in a second. I put my extra points to move up in the skill tree in Adrenaline and Brain Freeze, mainly just to slow the enemies, and also that action skill cooldown rate could be useful. But then Confident Competence, that is the more shields you have, the more gun damage you're going to do, and that's like a must in this build. It's that just more damage stacking on top of each other, and you guys can see how just these little buffs every now and then is going to keep on making your build stronger and stronger. Now these skills are debatable. They're not a must in the build, but I like to have them. I'll start with Really Expensive Jacket. That makes it to where you have half of the effect duration. So if you're on fire for 6 seconds, it'll go to 3 seconds. It's just convenient to have. Then Best Served Cold gives you a Cryo Nova whenever you kill an enemy, and that's really good for slowing down enemies. I only use it for the Cryo Nova because it freezes and slows down enemies around them, so I can get up close to them and get their crits. Next, and I would really recommend this, is the Futility Belt. This makes it to where it changes all elemental damage to non-elemental damage, and then reduces it by 15%. I'd say this is a really good thing for staying alive, and that's why you really don't need Stiff Upper Lip, but it's your decision. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Stiff Upper Lip only works on elements, and this makes it to where elements don't hit you, and it's non-elemental, so there's almost no point in having that. Anyways, then I'm using this action skill augment. It basically makes it to where anytime your barrier is getting damaged, you are getting extra gun damage, and your barrier is going to be damaged almost all the time, so you're going to have that extra 10% gun damage. As well as All-Rounder, which makes it to where your shield is covering you completely. And onto the orange. These are debatable. You can really put them wherever you want. I put them here because it just gives me that little bit more damage again, which is what this build is focusing on. It's focusing on just pumping up that little bit of damage. So I'm starting with this. It gives you 12% gun damage per action skill. So in total, that's 24 extra gun damage if you have both your barrier and your sentinel out. And same for this, except it's action skill duration. Then Donnybrook. This gives you that extra gun damage and health regen, which is great for this build. Anyways, now that we're done with the build, we can go test it out. Alright, now that I'm in the game, I'm going to try my best to explain how I like to play it. Of course, you can play this just about however you want. It has tons of mobbing and bossing capabilities. But basically, you're going to want to move around as fast as possible. What you'll notice is that with my Stormfront Grenade and my Electric Banjo, you'll have all of these lightning bolts going around. That is what's doing big damage, and that will be demonstrated in a second. This really shines in mobbing whenever there's anything around, but as well as that, just
anything. Of course, is main.
M4, and I'll show you guys the modifiers in one. Oh, what? Even without the barrier up, you can see I still have plenty of survivability. Of course, you're not doing the max damage you can be, so it's good to have both of them up. But you can just see how this build just rips through enemies. You just sort of look at them funny and they just die around you. One thing I will say is that it does not do that great against single targets, so if there's just one target, I recommend switching to the Cutsman, but if there's multiple targets, it really shines in. Again, you want to constantly be moving around, and you want to be constantly... Sorry, trying to concentrate. You want to be constantly moving around because the faster you move, the more damage you're going to be doing. And you can see, even with the wrong element, they just evaporate. So, you can see it's a very strong build. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the gameplay. If you guys want to watch it, then you can watch it. I'm going to be mobbing all the way up to Tron. If you don't wish to watch it, I will be putting a timestamp on the screen right now, and you can skip there. That's when I'll be facing Tron. So, as you guys saw, it can tear through bosses pretty well. I will show a few clips of me... Oh, what is happening on my screen? I'll show a few clips of me beating him a few more times, beating a few other things, and I'll also show a clip of me killing Wotan and True Vault Hunter mode, Mayhem 4, all those good things in less than 2 minutes. So yeah, I think that you guys will really enjoy this build. If you guys are on PS4, you can add me. My gamer tag is Slowbrew, except with an I instead of an L. And I can dupe you guys I can give you guys the build, and yeah.
checks. Bobby no weaving, you still not a threat. Fendi my jelly, you think that's a flex. You got the pieces, but ain't got the sauce. Moving low key when I'm up in the north. In the top, catch up my family crest. I run the alley, still ain't broke a sweat. Let's pay the pot, but don't fuck with my bread. You rat. Into the moon and I feel that yeah, you want. Smile on my face doesn't mean that you're safe. I could send for your head by tomorrow. Tired of waiting and sitting around, I just call up the team on tour. Your girl keep calling my line, you decline, she fine, but I swear she too boring. I got my eye on the prize and I promise I'll get to the bed by the morning. Bloodshot, been up, no rest, big talk, AI. The answer, damn, you could get hit with the cross. We hit you know we forget we departed. They want me done, but I'm just getting started. I talk my shit like my last name was Carmen. I blew right by you and say sayonara. On your left, better pay your respects. The Jebbu boys say the money's a move. We turn up in the west. Hella shots, the bitch I might see. On my day, there's no one like me. At the top of well, I might be. Eating toppers, get the guac. You wanna try me, homie, stop. Cause I might pull up on your block. I don't look scary till I'm pissed. I'm Tyler Durden with the switch. These trying times, so best be guided. The man in charge don't call me Biden. Don't believe me, guess that's Biden. Ain't got time for sense, what do you want? Smile on my face doesn't mean that you're safe. I can send for your head by tomorrow. Tired of waiting and sitting around, I just call up the team on tour. Your girl keep calling my line, you decline, she fine, but I swear she too boring. I got my eye on the prize and I promise I'll get to the bed by the morning.
How's that for a takedown, you angry metal end table?